Oh, hold on. Little early technical difficulties here. No,
Get it out. Get it out of the way.
there it is. There's the music. All right, welcome to Let Freedom Ring. My guest tonight, Keith Belanger. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I was excited to have you on. I know scheduling can be tough, so I'm glad. Thank you for making the time to do this.
No
So,
problem. Happy to do it.
all right. Well, Keith, let's get to know you a little bit. Where are you from, and where'd you grow up?
All right. I live in Derry, New Hampshire. I grew up in Rumford, Maine. Came down to New Hampshire to go to school at UNH, and just kind of stayed in Southern New Hampshire ever since.
Awesome. And you worked at UNH for a little while too, right?
Yep,
After
I got
going
a
there.
job there. I got a job there as a bus driver as a student when I was 19. I ended up working there until I was almost 30, which, at the time didn't know it was going to work out. I'm still using my CDL that I got at UNH now to support my family. So it's a good gig. Got a lot of fun memories from UNH, going to hockey games, going to football games, all that stuff. Years after I stopped going to school there. So it's,
Awesome. Now,
yeah.
Bobby worked under you, right? Or
Uh, so
did
I
he
worked
work?
for the bus company. Bobby worked
Yeah.
across the hall for parking. So that's how we met.
Okay.
When we played softball together, we had a team of parking and bus guys over the summers there.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Awesome. Now, what's one thing that everybody should know about you?
I'm a musician. That's me. Like,
You're big.
I'm 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 a husband, a father of three, and a musician. Those my top three things right there.
All right, awesome. Now, are you guys back? Because it sounds like you're back doing. Is it a restaurant that you're at, or a
Yeah, it's
bar,
a
or?
piano bar and restaurant up in Agunquit, Maine. We shut down in March. We were closed for 102 days. They reopened end of June, and the first weekend we had piano back in the restaurant was in July.
Okay,
So it's way
awesome.
different. The tables are spread out. There used to be standing room only around the piano, 3 and 4 rows of people deep, and obviously now they're very limited with seating. Um, you have to wear a mask when you're walking around. Nobody's allowed to come up to the piano player. Everything is like an envelope request system, but it's working. Everybody's still having fun, and I'm just grateful that we're open and able to have some kind of live music that's done in a really safe, smart way. Our owner did a really good job taking precautions, staying open. They did food delivery and pickup window when there was no indoor dining allowed. They added an outdoor garden area. We have piano out there now on the weekends as well as inside. So it's nice to have live music and be safe about it. And that's what everybody that comes says. It's so nice to be able to finally get back out there, get some food, have some drinks, and see live music in a way that still all our tables are 8 feet apart at a minimum. The owner could have put a couple more tables in and had the tables 6 feet apart, but he decided to spread everything out a little more and keep everybody safe. So, but yeah, we're back open. It's been a different summer, but a fun summer up there.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that's it's tough when during COVID when there's something you're really passionate about and it's just kind of like taken away for a little
Yep.
while.
Yep.
And my final question, and get to know you, sticking with the theme of the show, which is Let Freedom Ring. What
Yep.
does it mean to you to be an American?
I was excited that you put this question on there and to get a chance to answer it. So to me, it's never stop trying to be better. Growing up in northern Maine, coming down to southern New Hampshire, learning about diversity and different lifestyles and all the different kinds of people you can meet. You can be proud to be an American, and I still am. We sing that song, "Proud to be an American," almost every night at the piano. You can be proud to be an American, but also be self-aware enough to see how we can do better as a country, do better as a country for our citizens, hold our politicians more accountable, just all that stuff. It's just always looking to do better and be better. Which
Yeah.
when you have the brilliant minds that we have and the resources that we have, there's no reason we can't always strive to be better as a country and as a population.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, yeah, we can all be very proud, but there's nothing wrong with admitting the flaws as well.
Yep.
Um, so you gotta be the whole thing, or
Yep.
so. All right. Well, that's gonna go into current events now. Story kind of in the headlines around here. A Maine man was arrested for putting razor blades into pizza dough at Hannaford and I believe Dover. Oh no, he did it in Maine. I think he's from Dover or some. No,
Gotcha.
I don't
I
know.
didn't know. I knew nothing about this story till I saw it on your agenda. It's crazy.
Yeah. So his name was Nick R. Mitchell, former associate of It'll Be Pizza. I'm assuming he was trying to get back his employer or ex-employer. Thoughts on that? I mean, is that concerning that someone's was able to do this?
How did they catch him? Because that was the first question I had when I read this. Did somebody see him do it? Did somebody buy the pizza and get it home?
I think someone actually bought it, and then I think they
Wow.
went back to security cameras, is what I'd have to assume,
That's
and
crazy.
figured
And
out who did it.
it's very not appropriate, but it's very Halloween. You always hear about razor blades getting stuck in candy, and I guess that's never
Yeah.
actually happened. That's a myth. But I guess this guy just, like you said, must have been trying to get back as his employer, trying to make him look bad. And I'm glad you didn't say anybody got hurt. I'm guessing nobody got hurt, and glad they caught him before anything
No,
happened.
no. It sounds like that it could have been really bad. I mean, who knows if he got away with it? He probably would have gone back there and, hey, how you doing?
That's my oldest.
Yeah,
Obviously they can't see him. My oldest just
yeah,
he
yeah.
figured out I was doing something on the phone and had to come and say hi.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, just totally, totally crazy. And when a story like that happens around here, I always get a little bit more anxious because we've had some crazy stuff. That murder that happened in North Conway,
Yep.
um, just a lot of like random weird stuff going on right now. So
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they caught him. That's the bottom line.
yeah, yeah, no, I agree. Now, are you familiar with Tiger King at all? Did you watch the
I've
docu?
watched 2 or 3 episodes, so I just enough to know what everybody's talking about.
Okay. Now, the whole story, it kind of swept the nation a little bit, especially during that first part of quarantine.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. Their timing in releasing that was brilliant.
oh my God, like I was addicted to it. I couldn't, I had, I watched it all in like one night.
Yep.
Um, but Doc Antle, who was one of the three that was, it was mostly about Joe Exotic and Carol Baskins, but Doc
Mm-hmm.
Antle was there. He kind of had like this cult
He was the
almost
real big
vibe.
guy with the goatee, right?
Yeah,
Yep. And
yeah.
there he is.
So he has now been arrested and charged with felony for wildlife trafficking and animal cruelty, a bunch of things. Um, I guess my question is, when these guys decided to do the documentary, what were they thinking? Because this brought so much attention to them, and now two are going to jail. Most people believe that Carol's a murderer. you know.
So
Uh,
I think the producers must have done a great job selling the show to these people, and then I mean, just like with any documentary, you got to remember that they're not. It's not an investigative journalism where they're trying to find the truth. They're trying to tell a good story. So there's always going to be a spin. You're always going to get one person's side of it or the other. Um, it's just like with making a murderer. They had a story to tell, and of course they're going to show evidence that supports it. And I didn't actually hear that he had been arrested, but I mean, it can't surprise you. And as far as what those people were thinking, I mean, that guy had such an ego. You heard it from the people
yeah.
that worked for him. You could tell when he talked. He probably thought that either he was so smart he thought he was above reproach, or he had been doing it for so long he didn't think he was doing anything wrong. And that's my guess with that guy is he probably figured, you know, I'm doing this for the animal's own good, even though it wasn't. It's just he'd been at it for so long he didn't know right from wrong anymore.
Yeah, I would have to
So
agree. I mean, the arrogance of him, even in the documentary, you could just tell how full of this of himself
yeah.
that he was and how
Mm-hmm.
manipulative he was. So I guess it's not a shock, but it's just funny that at the end of the day, it's like you guys did this documentary and now you guys are all going down, and it just shows like you brought the heat on yourself. So
Yep.
um, all right, that's going to take us into politics. A little bit light on the agenda for this because we are coming up to the election,
Yep. Less than a
um,
month.
where social media will start to become a little bit more unbearable. Myself, I don't share too much politics. I have the show. You want to know what I think? Watch my show.
Yep.
But the big thing that people are already arguing about is mail-in voting. Do you have any issues with that? Do you think is Trump right that there's all this going to be, um, faking of ballots, or I don't know. I don't know what that man thinks, but
I,
what do you think?
I I saw a study just recently, and of course I can't remember the source, and I tried to find it and I couldn't find it, but it basically showed that you had a better chance of getting struck by lightning than finding somebody who'd actually committed voter fraud. It was like less than 0.1% of mail-in votes that were found to be voter fraud. Because I think what a lot of people don't realize is you don't just get a ballot mailed to you, you stick a stamp on it and send it back in, and there's no verification. A friend of mine that I do theater with up in Wolfboro is the town clerk up there. And they have a pretty strict process they have to follow before that ballot gets counted. And I feel like that never gets mentioned in all of this talk about mail in voting not being safe. And so I feel like it's a sort of a comment on a larger issue in this country where we shouldn't make it so difficult to vote. There are some other democratic countries where it's illegal not to vote. You have to get time off from work. You have to go vote. And I feel like with today's technology, if I can file my taxes online and do all these, just paid off my car online, we've got to find a way to make it easier and more accessible to everyone to vote. And I don't want to use too broad a brush and say that all Republicans are bad, but I feel like this talking point about mail-in voting being a negative has come from some people on the right, because for the most part, people who can't vote and would take mail-in voting, I would say a majority of them are probably going to lean left and probably aren't going to vote for Trump. And it's funny that Trump was saying, mail-in voting is going to lead to voter fraud. He votes by absentee ballot.
Yeah.
And if it's good enough for him and
Yeah.
it's good enough for our troops overseas, especially with a pandemic. But like I said, I think it's just a comment on how voting should be made easier in this country. You talk about the election results from 2016, and 29% voted for Hillary and 27% voted for Trump, and 40% didn't vote at all.
Yeah.
And that's, people need to get more engaged in their, and not just in presidential elections either, but in the down ballot stuff. I mean, I have to do it. I have to spend a little time researching the candidates for, my town council and my representatives to the state Senate and stuff. But I don't think there's going to be rampant voter fraud like some people on the right want you to believe, because there are safeguards in place. You can't just mail in a ballot and have it get counted without proving that it's you and proving you didn't, you're not going to go vote and stuff. So there's a bit of work to it. It's I mean, with Trump, he's a quote unquote movie star, a TV star.
Yeah.
I think he's always looking for the exit strategy, or to have some kind of backup plan where if he loses in November, he'll be able to point his fingers at all these other different things. And it's, some people are saying, he won't accept the results. I don't know if he's that much of an egotist, or if he just can't handle the blow to his ego without having some excuse as to why he loses.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, he plays the game really well. He knows how to distract and deflect, and I wonder if that's just him setting up a long term. Because then he turned around, 2 weeks later and said everybody should vote by mail. So it's one of those.
You don't know. He loves just he just loves the headlines. So it's the more that, and who has the biggest voice in the country? The president. Because some of these things that he's brought attention to are like, they're almost like nonsense. But because when I've heard him kind of come out and say those things, but then I start noticing more people like buying into it. Like that's a lot of things that Trump's been able to do, is like, he'll put out bullshit. Most people can go, yeah, that's not true. But then there is this part of the population that buy into it.
Well, and I think we did such a bad job. So many people that voted for him, and so many people were angry with them, that now the people that still support him just get defensive, because people that didn't support him and don't support him couldn't separate the emotions of being scared, wondering what he was going to do, and started blaming the people that voted for him to the point where they made them feel stupid. And now there's some people that still support him so vehemently, they're just like, nope, doesn't matter what you say. You made me feel stupid, and now I'm never going to support your candidate, which is doing a disservice to the rest of the country and people that are trying to make an informed decision. Because I've never seen, I mean, I liked Obama, and I know lots of people that liked Obama, but at times it seems like Trump has almost a cult-like following.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
because it's almost like no matter what he says, they're going to ride or die with that.
mhm.
And it makes it very difficult. But, you know, well, that brings us into the next question that I've been asking everybody. Who's winning this thing?
I, I mean, I thought Hillary was going to win in 2016, and I just hope that, more and more polls start to show Biden in the lead, and I just hope that people like me that support him don't get complacent. And my heart says I'd like Biden to win. My head says it's. I mean, it's also the law of large numbers. When you get into, I'm not a math person, but I know from statistics that when you have that many people voting, it's always going to be decided by a small margin. And then when you
Yeah.
throw in the electoral college and how many that can get, who knows? I mean, there might be people that still support Trump that aren't vocal about it. There might be people that are, they just, not that they're ashamed, but they're so sick of getting yelled at that they don't admit they're going to vote for him. That vote, they haven't been counted in the polls yet. It's so hard to know. But I, either way, I just hope whatever happens in November, we can start to turn the corner as a country with the way that we treat each other over politics. And I mean, the election of Trump was important. You look at his legacy with the Supreme Court nominations he already has and possibly one more. But I think, people talk about the two-party system not working and voting third party. You can't just vote third party for the president. You want to vote third party, you got to start down ballot with your town council and your state
Yeah,
representatives. And I'm
that's a good
hoping that,
point.
I mean, I know when I was 18, I wasn't super engaged in politics, and my social media, I'm not friends with a lot of teenagers, but I've made some connections through theater. The 18-year-olds that I know now are super engaged in politics, and they're not just on there saying, Trump sucks, vote Biden. They're well versed on the issues, and it's more than just the presidential race. And not that I've been a supporter of Trump's, but if that's something that comes out of his presidency is getting younger people more engaged in the political process, that's a win for everybody. As far as
Yeah.
who wins, if I had to pick now, I'd say Biden. Looking at the polls, looking at how it seems like right now, every time Trump is on a TV camera, he's going up in flames. I'm hoping Biden. I'm not ashamed to admit that, and I think Biden's has got the right strategy going into November, but we'll see, man. And we may not know right away. It may be a week before we even get the final result this year.
Well, that's what's yeah. I mean, I had Bobby on the show the other day, and he was just saying like, get ready because we ain't gonna know for a little while, and it's gonna
Yep.
just cause more
Like every
arguing.
like we thought the Bush Gore election was crazy. I think it's going to be crazier than that.
Yeah, this is we literally are in the perfect storm of crap,
Yep.
because we're so divided. Then the pandemic hits, and
Yep.
it's like, wait, it's an election year on top of that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's been nuts. And I think you did bring up a good point that there are a lot of people. I've had someone come on the show that is a Trump supporter and said that we are the silent majority. We are afraid to voice our opinions at this point. A lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I wonder how many people that is something talked about that are just not willing to tell anybody what they really think.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting. I'll tell you this. I'm probably not going to be looking at Facebook that night. I don't think I'm even watched for the results this year. Like, I'm
Yep.
drained on this. So we'll have to see what happens there.
I hear you,
Did
man.
you?
I go ahead.
Oh, no. Go. I have another point, but go ahead. What were you
Well,
gonna say?
the social, and I use social media for the most part to promote my music business and share. I try to keep it light, family fun photos and goofy stuff. And I find myself sharing some political stuff, but I'm not changing anybody's mind on Facebook.
Yeah.
Other people use it as a platform, and I'll get into comments with people, but I try to keep it off my own page. And I find myself snoozing, especially now that we're less than 30 days out, snoozing people for 30 days, and regardless of what side they're on. If all they do is post political stuff, they're entitled. It's their page, but that's not why I'm on social media.
Yeah.
I'm not changing. I'm not well spoken enough to change anybody's mind if they're already entrenched and they're certain they're going to vote for Trump. And I've tried to ask people, can you tell me why you personally, why you still support him? And they don't want to discuss it. They want to just yell at you. And I only have so many hours in a day, and I'm
Yeah.
just not interested in getting dragged down on social media with that
Well,
stuff.
I posted the other day, and I try to be just more comical on there. I'm
Yep.
really past the point of I don't want to argue with people.
Yep.
I'll troll sometimes if I'm in a mood, but
Hmm.
um, the debates, like, do are those debates really changing anybody's minds? Is there really anybody that's not
Yeah.
like
I
decided
I mean, there
on?
are undecided voters out there. I guess I don't know how you could have gotten any. I didn't watch the first debate, the presidential debate. I heard about it. I watched some clips. I don't know how you could have learned anything from that if you were an undecided voter, because there was so much yelling, and even when Trump was speaking, it was hard to follow what he was saying. There was no policy discussion, and I thought the vice presidential debate. My wife will tell you that she's, and I don't want to speak for her, but she was impressed with the way Kamala handled herself, and I thought that actually the vice presidential debate there was more to learn from that than there was from the presidential debate. But you're right. How many people are still undecided with 3 weeks to go on the presidential election? Like,
No, and the other thing is how divisive President Trump is. It makes it really easy. You're either all in on him or you can't
mm-hmm,
stand him and you want him gone. I just don't
mm-hmm.
see anybody really changing anything.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
so we got a fan question from Mike Bollier. Who is your all-time favorite composer and why?
Okay, so I've got a couple different answers because it's such a. I mean, you want to go like classical music, instrumental. It'd be Aaron Copland, considered one of the great American composers, and that's a name a lot of people might not recognize the name. Remember those old beef commercials? It's what's for dinner with that song.
Yeah.
Do, 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 do. That's Aaron Copland. That's like that classic Western American composer style. So for classical, it's him. For just music in general, it's Billy Joel. As a piano
Ah,
player, and a singer, I've been a Billy Joel fan since I was a kid. I've seen him once in concert. So he's like the gold standard. And then as far as newer musicians putting out new stuff, I think Sarah Bareilles is one of the best songwriters and lyricists who's putting out new music today. So those are my three answers because I didn't want to just give one. So there's kind of a broad range.
yeah, no. I mean, I've loved Billy Joel since I remember, my parents were always listening to that, and
Yep.
how can you not like Billy Joel?
Yep. And it's funny because I use an iPad to play most of my music from at the piano, but I've still got two books up there because he's got literally a whole catalog that's just his music. That's so good.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's my answer.
All right, and and I was talking to somebody about this yesterday at softball. This guy that I play softball with, he's a big gun collector, but he sold off
Hmm.
a bunch of his guns and stuff so that he could bring his wife to go see Hamilton. It's
Yep.
a very touching story. I didn't know how many people really love
Yeah.
the Hamilton. Mike
Yep.
wants to know. He wants you to rate it 1 to 10.
All right. So I'm going to give a little backstory first because in addition to doing the piano bar thing, I'm a music director. I do theater. You saw It's a Wonderful Life a couple years ago. You've seen some of the
Yeah,
stuff
that
that
was
I've done.
awesome.
I was super late to the Hamilton train. I don't typically listen to a lot of show tunes unless it's a show that I'm working on. And from what I had heard, I didn't want to listen to Hamilton and then just listen to it on repeat. So I sort of intentionally didn't listen to it until this summer, just recently. I was driving a delivery truck and needed something to kill some time doing a trip out to the Cape. And I turned it on and I listened to it. And then I listened to it like three more times that week. And then I saw it, Disney Plus released it July 3rd and I listened to it. I think it's pretty great as a musician who does a lot of theater, who has done some other stuff by Lin Manuel Miranda. I wasn't sure what to expect when I listened to it, but I think it's a 9.0 out of 10. I think it's brilliantly written. I think I mean, obviously it's a story, and there are some things that aren't 100% historically accurate, but he did a pretty good job fitting a lot of facts into that show. As a musician, every main character in the show has their own style of rap, their own theme. And I mean, it took him 6 years to write it. He put a lot of thought into the different styles of rap. Like, and I've watched some behind the scenes stuff, like George Washington. All of his raps land right on the beat, and they're all very straightforward because that's how Miranda pictured George Washington's thought process, as opposed to um, that opening that opening song, "Not Throwing Away My Shot." and he quotes in his styles Notorious B.I.G.
Oh,
and
really?
the behind the scenes videos are fascinating. The way I don't know if you've listened to it, but
I haven't. I now I
it's
feel everybody's selling me on it
it's
now.
pretty good. There's a
Yeah.
moment in there where he spells out his name and goes, "My name's Alexander," which is a straight up sample of a famous. And I don't listen to rap, so I didn't.
Yeah.
But I think he said it was Notorious B.I.G. and it was a way that they because there's East Coast rap and there's West Coast rap, and he was using like that straight out of Compton style rap in different parts of the show. And then it's brilliantly written, and like I said, as a musician, I geeked out when I heard different parts and how he wove these different tunes, simple melodies, over and over again into the different characters' growth and how they changed. And then after the fact, listening to him talk about composing it, like there's a moment they're talking about Revolution, and the backup singers are all doing this. They're just singing these couple simple notes over and over again. And Miranda was like, "That's supposed to sound like what your dial-up internet used to sound like when you were connecting to it. That
Yeah.
screeching, and because that's what it was. They were connecting and they were hooking up, and it's like, and you go back and it's like, how did he come up with all this shit? Sitting in his living room at home in New York, and so the only reason that I couldn't give it a full 10 is my wife sat down to watch it with me, and not knowing anything about it, she had a hard time following it because if you don't, I knew all the words because I listened to it one time with the lyrics in front of me.
Yeah.
It's hard to it's lightning fast rap sections, and it's hard to follow if you've never seen it before. If you don't know, everybody that I know that loves it had already listened to it a bunch before they'd ever watched it, and so they already knew the lyrics and was able to just watch the stagecraft and follow along. And I think because it's so well written and so dense, it can be a little hard to follow. But overall, and the racial casting, it's intentionally America today telling that story of back then, where it's like
Okay.
none of the actors are supposed to be the person they're playing. They're telling you each person's story.
Okay.
Sort of like to use something like more common to the zeitgeist, How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
Josh Radnor and those actors are not the people they're just actors telling that story. Kind of the same thing with Hamilton. Um, so it's dense. There's a lot to follow along with, but then just from a storytelling piece, if you watch it on Disney Plus, you can see it. The way they use simple sets and simple little costume changes and lighting changes to tell the story. It's not like you're watching a movie and you're supposed to suspend disbelief. The actors are people that are telling you, the story of the actor they're portraying. It's just like I said, I don't listen to a lot of show tunes, but I'll still turn on Hamilton just for a long car ride or whatever because it's so thick and so well composed and everything. I geek out over different parts every time I listen
Yeah.
to it.
Well, I will be honest. When I'd heard of it, did you ever see 1776?
I have listened to it. I've never seen a production of it, but I know the music.
So I used to I had that in my collection, but that's all I kind of thought it was gonna kind of be like. But it sounds like it's
Mm-hmm.
something very different. I didn't know there was rap involved in it, so that
It's
does sound
probably
interesting.
70% hip hop, and then with a couple more typical show tune numbers in it. But it's definitely worth a listen.
All right, I'll definitely have to give that a give. I'll have to put that on the agenda of things to watch. I'm sure
Well,
I could still.
and for a real ringing endorsement, your boss, President LeBlanc, tweeted, I think the day Disney released it, that he saw it in New York and said it's the best piece of theater he's ever seen.
Oh, really? All
Yeah,
right.
which so
I'll have to do it. I gotta say, when we went to see your show 2 years ago, that was a lot of fun. Like going
yeah,
to I just love It's a Wonderful Life. So I was like, I told my mom, I was like, if you want to come, let's go check this out, and it was a blast. So
yeah,
definitely,
that was a special show for me because that was the first main stage show that my wife directed that I music directed. We've done a couple small projects here. That was our first big project. That was it's such a timeless, beautiful story. Everybody
yeah,
knows that movie. We got really lucky with casting for people who showed up, and the music was beautifully written. It's not a piece that's done around here much, and I actually got to connect with the composer because we're in a music director Facebook group, and he, answered my questions and told me what to use for orchestration. And we've had really good luck with our Christmas shows because we did that show 2 years ago. and we sold like 1,000 tickets. And then last year we did Elf the musical, which is the Will Ferrell movie just with more music added, and we sold out all 4 shows.
Yeah, I missed the boat on that. I waited too long. So
and Christmas music, people like the Christmas shows, so we did well with that. But It's a Wonderful Life will always be a special show. I'm actually sitting. You won't be able to see it for the folks listening, but this is a pillow from the cast of that show. So
oh,
It's a Wonderful
nice.
Life on it. Yeah. That was a special show for the Belangers.
That is probably, if I really think about it, it's probably my all-time favorite movie. Yep. It's just something special. It really is, and there's a reason why NBC plays it every year.
Yep. It's one of those. It's almost too good to beat.
Yeah, and the weird thing about that movie is I don't think when it first came out it was popular. You know what I mean? Because I think they released it in like August or something like that, which is kind of
too dark. It was it was too heavy.
But now that's a staple of Christmas Eve for me, at least. It's going to take us into sports. Now, yesterday, Dak Prescott got hurt.
I heard. I haven't seen the video. They said it was very similar to Gordon Hayward. I don't want to see the video. I feel terrible for him.
It's bad, and I know Dak had already had some. It's funny some of the stupid things you see people say. Like Skip Bayless was criticizing Dak Prescott at one point for having depression. I'm like, what kind of asshole are you, Skip Bayless?
Well, Skip Bayless is an asshole. That's pretty well documented. But.
That's true. But Tony Dungy, usually a very nice guy, he said this injury could be a blessing in disguise for the Cowboys live on TV. What the heck? Now he's said what he meant later, but what is Tony Dungy thinking, saying something like that when a guy?
The only thing I can think of is, Dak had been balling out this year. The offense for the Cowboys wasn't the issue why they were losing ball games, and I don't know what Tony Dungy said afterwards. All I can think of is maybe the team is going to rally. The defense is going to get their head out of their asses, and they've got probably one of the better backups in the league with Andy Dalton there. He's no slouch. He can win them some games. It's not like Brian freaking Hoyer is their backup quarterback. So that's the only thing I could think of when I saw you wrote that down. Maybe that's what they meant, is that, the Red Rocket he's no Dak Prescott, but there's this a wake-up call that defense needs to start playing better.
And that's the claim that he said. It was a bad choice of words, but I almost am like, okay, this guy is seriously injured in this game, and you're calling this game. What are you thinking saying something like that in that moment? And I'll tell you what, I wanted to when Brady left, I was hoping the Patriots would get Andy Dalton. I didn't know that we'd have a shot at Cam as easy as the Patriots got him.
Yeah, I agree.
Which was ridiculous.
It's easy to look at it now, the short money they had to spend on Cam. But I kind of expected them to go after Andy Dalton because he's a little bit more of the same mold as Brady. He's more mobile than Brady, but he's still a pocket passer that I thought would have fit McDaniels' offense. But I kind of like seeing what McDaniels has done with Cam as a quarterback and the way they're pushing the running game and everything. And but yeah, as far as the Cowboys, I've got a good friend of mine who's a Cowboys fan. I feel bad for him because he thought they should have paid Dak, and he was frustrated they didn't. And I don't blame Dak for betting on yourself, but this is the risk you take when you hold out and you're waiting for that big money. And this is a freak accident. You're only going to see one of these every 2 or 3 years where a guy his leg gets obliterated.
It's just it was hard to look at for sure. Yeah. And that kind of brings me into I'm on the sports page, and they were talking about Mike Greenberg, I believe, said Trevor Lawrence from Clemson shouldn't go into the draft because he's going to get drafted by the Jets, right? Probably. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wait a second. So he plays another year of college. It's one more year of college to get hurt. Yep. If you have a chance to go in the NFL, I don't care what you get paid. You could get hurt.
You don't even have to go back that far. Ask Tua and the Dolphins. You run the risk any game of some freak injury happening.
Yeah, remember the national championship that one year, Willie McGahee blew out his knee or whatever it was. It's just
the Jets are kind of a joke this year, but are the Jets even smart enough to draft Trevor Lawrence, or are they still all in on Sam Darnold?
Yeah, I don't know. They are a mess though, and they've been a mess for a while. I
It's crazy to
mean,
think at one point they were the Patriots' biggest rivals in the AFC when they made those 3 straight AFC championship games back when I can't even remember his name now. The
Rex Ryan.
who's the quarterback? Mark Sanchez.
Yes, Mark
Mark Sanchez.
Sanchez. Butt
Yeah,
fumble. Yeah.
yeah, butt fumble. Yeah, yeah, exactly. How far they've fallen.
Yeah, they were. Rex Ryan's just not as a head coach. He just can't finish it. I mean, he's got too much other stuff distracting.
Yep. He's too defensive minded, and I think didn't pay attention enough to the details because, like they talk about, there's a lot that the head coach isn't trying to travel and booking hotels and all that kind of stuff that I don't know that Rex Ryan ever had the attention to detail to pay attention to.
Yeah, and he puts out fetish videos online for everybody to see. Lakers win their 17th championship. They're now tied with the Celtics. How do you feel about that? Does LeBron James not get the credit that he really deserves? I mean, he got the MVP. I was happy to see that.
So I'm not a huge basketball guy. I'll watch basketball up until the Celtics get eliminated basically every year. The homer in me was hoping the Lakers weren't going to win because obviously you want the Celtics to say they have more championships, which always felt like it had an asterisk to me because how many of those did they win back when there were like 8 teams in the league?
Yeah.
Playing,
Yeah.
But you almost kind of felt it was preordained after Kobe passed away, which seems like it was 3 years ago because of the pandemic, but it was literally February?
He died in January.
Yeah. Right before the world ended. So it's almost like it was preordained that the Lakers were going to win. And aside from them spending a bunch of money on LeBron, don't they have a lot of guys that they drafted and have brought up and because they rebuilt? They've been bad for a couple of years.
And they got Anthony Davis fairly easily.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I guess good for LeBron. The guy's he's the best ball player of this generation. I don't know how anybody can argue that. He's in the top 5, I think, ever. He's just a monster physically, and I don't know that he's going to be able to be compared to Jordan, but the game is so different now too. I mean, the way it's based on outside shooting. You look at the way the Warriors won their titles with Steph Curry, and the way it's a different game than when Jordan was playing. I don't know how you can compare the two. Even a different era than when Kobe was a young player and a rookie. The game has changed, but good for LeBron. Whether or not I didn't follow it much. He won the MVP. Even if he's not the guy scoring 35 points and the guy taking the shot at the end of the game, at this point he's a leader. He's like having a second coach on the floor. If you're on his team, that and in some ways they talk about basketball. He's like a GM too because he's helping recruit guys to come play there and all that stuff.
I'll take it to my grave that he orchestrated. I think him, Wade, and Bosch were at an All-Star game, and we're like, yeah, let's do this.
I agree.
So,
I mean, the quote unquote green teamer in me, I'd like to see the Celtics win one and get back ahead of the Lakers because it's always beat LA whenever you can. But
yeah, no, I agree.
Good for LeBron and good for Los Angeles losing Kobe the way they did earlier this year. That's sort of redemption for him.
I mean, I'll always remember where I was when I heard, Bobby text me. I was driving, and I get a text that comes, like I was driving, but when a text comes up on your phone, you can see it. You know what I mean? And I get a text from him that said Kobe Bryant died. I went, what? Like, I'm like driving. I'm like, what? Pull over, and I call him. I go, what the hell are you talking about? Kobe Bryant died. Like it was just, that's just one of those things,
I was at work. I got the alert on my phone, and then I don't always listen to sports talk, but I tuned in that and I'm like, this is got to be a joke. This can't be real.
Yeah, that was terrible. That was absolutely terrible. And the things, when stories like that break, it went from, I mean, at one point there was headlines that it was like his whole family was on that plane, So that was definitely wild. I honestly, I'm, obviously as a Boston guy, it's hard for me to root for the Lakers, but I've always respected the Lakers and good for LeBron and whatever. Patriots and coronavirus. Are we going to get this figured out or what? Like, are you,
I mean, somebody was saying they were going to get punished by the NFL, and I'm like, why? It's not like they were the Titans. The Titans were having unauthorized practices and everything. It seems to me that whatever Cam and Stephon Gilmore were doing, they got it at the same time. And then the other one, I mean, 4 cases out of how many people that work there that are in the building.
Yeah.
The Patriots handled it as well as they could have. They've locked down the building. They're doing remote meetings. They've done everything that they can. And I'm surprised the NFL is still having a season. You know, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens as things go forward, because it's, you know, you and I were talking on Facebook because they're talking about using winning percentage instead of record, and I think that's because there may be teams that only play a 14-game regular schedule as opposed to 16. So
I think it's almost inevitable, unless you can't, unless you can do a bubble. Though MLB did really well with it. Like they had that hiccup, and I don't think there's been an issue since.
Yeah, there really hasn't. It was just the Marlins had, and I think the Marlins, they went out to nightclubs and did stuff they weren't supposed to do. And
but they, you know, I guess baseball. Like I'm playing softball right now, and I really don't worry about Corona because I'm not really on top of everybody.
Yeah, unless you're sliding into second base or trying to break up a play, you're not really within 6 feet of each other very often.
Yeah, I mean, the only place I could see it happen is when we come to the dugout. But you know, I go in the dugout and try to stay away from everybody. You know, so yeah, I hope they figure it out. And I was very happy that there was football.
Same. I know some people are like, I can't believe they're playing sports. I don't know about you, but after being in this for 7 months, I could use a distraction. It's nice to have a little bit of normalcy and turn on the game and, you know, just be able to relax and forget about everything going on and watch football for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, it is it's kind of like our everybody's passion sport now. So to not have it would have, you know, that's another reason I think that, you know, Trump has a chance, because if you would have taken away football, there was no way he was getting reelected. There's no chance, you know. What are some of your favorite sports moments of all time?
So I think, like everybody that lives in New England feels like they have to say when the Red Sox won in 04. And obviously, yes, that's huge. But for me, I've got some, you know, and for me, the Patriots winning in 01 was huge. I was in college for the first time watching that game at UNH, and I didn't go to the riots, but obviously I heard about them and everything that happened downtown. So that's a pretty big moment. But for me, and it's going to go way, way back, in 1999, UNH hockey played the University of Maine in the national championship game. And it was, you know, big news. And UNH wasn't on my radar as a school yet. And everybody, growing up in Maine, everybody was watching that game, rooting for Maine, except my dad. I remember sitting on the couch, or sitting in the, you know, the easy chairs at home. He grew up in New Hampshire. His brother went to the University of New Hampshire. So we were rooting for UNH. So even though UNH lost that game, that was when I sort of started really getting into hockey, and college hockey in particular. I've got a lot of really fond memories of being a student, sitting in the student section at UNH games, being a season ticket holder. And then later, with the company that I work for now, driving UNH hockey. I got to take them for about a season. I was their requested driver, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah! Did you get to go into the games like for free, or?
Yeah, I got a ticket to the game, and I had a team jacket, so I could. I remember I was at BU, and I was going to use the bathroom, and I went the wrong way and wandered into BU's locker room by mistake. The coach turned around and goes, "Can I help you?" I'm like, "No, I went the wrong way." I just went back upstairs, and nobody.
Yeah.
Some fun memories doing that. Going to Red Sox games with my wife when she was pregnant with our first kid. We made the joke that every time she got pregnant, the Sox won the World Series. That was back in 2013. Trying to think, but I think for me, yeah, the 99, even though UNH lost, that 99 championship game will always be a big memory for me. And just 99 too, I met my best friend Josh. I was his best man at his wedding. He's been my best man at my wedding. The year that Pedro was the Pedro that we all remember, even though the Red Sox didn't win the World Series. He was like 21-3 that year.
He was ridiculous.
That was the first year I got into My wife's a huge Sox fan. She just looked at
Yeah,
me. She goes, "Not when Pedro threw Don Zimmer to the ground. That's not your favorite moment."
I have that hanging up in here.
Do you?
Yeah.
So, but I think for me as a hockey guy, when the Bruins won the cup in 2011, because I used to watch hockey with my dad when Byron Defoe was the goalie, way back when. I'm going to bring it all around to my absolute number one favorite moment in a minute, but I've got the Bobby Orr goal hanging on the wall. I used to watch hockey with my dad, and he'd always scream, "Score, Bobby Orr!" every time they'd score a goal. This is way after Orr retired. So there was a weekend in March when this is back when UNH hockey was always in the playoffs and always at the conference finals at the Garden in Boston. And I spent a week with a girlfriend of mine at the time. Spent a weekend down there. We went to UNH one night and the Bruins the next night. And this will tell you how long ago it was when Patrice Bergeron was like still just a kid. Was actually the Patrice Bergeron won the game, and it was the Bruins' first shootout victory back when the NHL had first changed the overtime rules.
Yeah.
So I was that's the only Bruins game I've ever been to in person. Was that you'd have to go back and look up the date and the score, but Bergeron scored the game winner in the shootout. So I was at that game. So that's probably my personal favorite moment because I'm a hockey guy first. So
Well, there's something about being like, because we watch a lot of sports moments mainly on TV.
mm-hmm.
I mean, because for me personally, probably the coolest thing I ever saw live at a game was David Ortiz said, "This is our fucking city," and I was like, "Did he just do that?"
You were
Yeah,
at that game? Wow.
yeah.
Hey, Becca. The game when Ortiz said, "This is our fucking city." After the marathon bombing.
It was unreal. It was really unreal.
Chills. That must have been chills.
Yeah, and I texted my mom. I said, "Hey, did that get on TV?"
Mm-hmm. It sure did.
So, but no.
That's a great moment. Yeah, and then in a close second, again being a hockey guy, I don't remember the year now. It was so long ago. UNH was playing in the NCAA tournament in Manchester against North Dakota.
I might have been at that.
Yeah, you can. I was at that game, and a bunch of my friends were like, "No, we're not going. We're not spending the money. UNH isn't going to win." And there was a face-off with 5.4 seconds left. UNH was down by a goal. The face-off in the zone, and I remember because the puck had gone out of play, and there was a pretty lengthy review about whether or not it had touched somebody's stick because that determined where the face-off was. And the face-off was in North Dakota zone. UNH scored with 0.1 seconds left on the board, and the place went nuts. So being there when all my friends had said they weren't going, and them all texting me, "Can you get me tickets for tomorrow's game?" And I'm like, "You're on your own."
Yeah.
So that was a pretty cool moment too, being there. And I knew those guys because that was one of the seasons that I was their driver. I knew a bunch of the players, and it was just a cool moment to be there with that. Sort of like the 28-3 Super Bowl for the Patriots. There was no way they were going to win the face-off, get it around in front of the net, and score a goal in 5.4 seconds, but they did.
Yeah, there's just something about sports. That it's like that. It's just incredible. Pop culture. We dedicated the show the other day to the memory of Eddie Van Halen. I love Van. I'm more of a Hagar fan of that Van Halen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite Van Halen song, or
you really
multiple
got me
ones?
Now. You really got me now.
Okay.
I mean, they're all good, and I listened to Felger and Maz, and Big Jim had said this, and Felger thought he was an idiot, but whether you like their music or not, or whether you prefer them with Hagar or whatever, I think Van Halen was the most influential guitarist of our generation. Not to say that he was either the most talented or the best, but he revolutionized the way the electric guitar got played. And just you hear that music. I like You Really Got Me Now. I don't know why that song always jumped out at me. Whenever that song comes on the radio, I turn it up. But everything about Van Halen was iconic. Their logo, again, being a musical theater nerd, there's a stage version of the Adam Sandler movie, The Wedding Singer. And they
really?
Yeah, it's a great show. It's a wicked fun show. But they reference in the opening number, Sammy plays Van Halen licks while George gets out on tambourines. That of all the bands they could have mentioned, they quote Van Halen. That's the because he revolutionized the electric guitar. That's just the guy was an icon. He, like so many, he's taken from us too young. But yeah, for
Yeah.
me, it's you really got me now.
All right. All right. Now, do you have now if you had to choose, just sticking to Van Halen, would you pick Roth or would you pick Hagar?
Ah,
And I'm
I
not going to count
think
the third. I'm not going to count the third guy.
right.
Honestly, yeah.
I think for me, and this is only because every once in a while at the piano bar, somebody will ask me to do Van Halen. I can sing the Hagar stuff a little more comfortably, so that's usually what I go for. So,
Yeah.
but they're both good. They both are their own thing. They're
Oh
both
yeah.
good. So it's kind of hard to pick. You almost just flip a coin.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's crazy too when you think about that band because how many bands? I don't know. Off the top of my head, but I'm sure I could only count on one hand. How many bands that you know that were successful with two different, you know, lead
Yep.
vocalists? You
Yep.
know,
Not many. Not many.
so
Well, and I give
but
them credit for when they switched vocalists. It's not like when Axl Rose subbed in for AC/DC and they just tried to sound the same. And he was a good fit. I mean, he fit that band well, but they didn't try to sound like they were with their previous lead singer. This is who we are now, and this is what we're gonna do. And they went out there and they rocked out, and that's it. I give them credit for doing that.
yeah, well, yeah, because ACDC, so they had Bon Scott, and then it
Hmm.
was Brian Williams. What was his name? Brian Johnson.
Yeah,
Brian
Brian
Williams.
Johnson, he had throat cancer, so they were on tour, and Axl Rose subbed in for him.
Okay,
And
and
I mean, his vocals were similar enough that they didn't have to change the way they play. He fit right into the songs. And
I have to say this, just bringing up Axl Rose. Talk about a band that kind of robbed us of some really good music by just not being able to get along.
yep,
So,
100%.
do you have a top 5 favorite movies?
I didn't write them down, so I'm gonna have to sit here and think about it for a little bit. I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, I mean, the Avengers movies, Becca and I have seen them all. We own them all. We've watched them in order multiple times. Of them, Thor Ragnarok is one of our favorites from that. Like, if you had to pick one movie out of all 22 of those, I think that's probably my favorite of those is Thor Ragnarok. I'm trying to think of what else. Um, like, if a movie comes on and I'm flipping through the channels, I'm gonna sit and watch it. Um, so I'm gonna make these up as we go, so don't judge me.
Yeah,
But
that's all right.
Die Hard's definitely in the top 5. No question. So we got Die Hard, we got Thor, Ragnarok. For Love of the Game, it's a little bit of a sappy baseball movie.
Oh yes, that is
Yeah,
good. I love Kevin
Kevin.
Costner. So.
I mean, just Kevin Costner in any sports movie is pretty goddamn good. So that's 3. Gonna go, musical theater, even though it was a terrible movie and it got terrible reviews, and when they were finally put it on Broadway, it was way better. Newsies will always be one that I'll just geek out to because I remember watching that when I was a little kid. And then tie for 5th between Mystery, the Disney version of Miracle with
Ah,
Kurt Russell, great hockey movie, and Mystery Alaska, which is a corny little hockey movie with Russell Crowe. But if you're a hockey guy and you've never seen it, it's a fun movie, Mystery Alaska. But I like Miracle because they were working on filming that when I was still at UNH, and one of the players from UNH. And one of the reasons I like Miracle, that the movie Disney made, is because they didn't use actors and teach them how to skate. They found hockey players and taught them how to act. So next time you watch that movie, there's a guy who plays Jack O'Callahan from the University of Maine was a college hockey player that, like, right after college went and was in that movie. And there's only one player in the movie, Robbie McClanahan, who was an actor that they had to teach how to skate. Every other player in that movie was a real ice hockey player, whether college hockey or semi-pro or whatever, that they brought in and taught them how to be in the movie, how to act.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's it probably makes for better shots of the actual hockey games when you have people
That's
that
it, exactly
actually
it,
do it.
because they spent a lot of time recreating actual game footage from the 1980 Olympics. And they spent a lot of time like redubbing Al Michaels. How long has Al Michaels been a sports commentator, by the way?
Yeah,
Redubbing,
probably forever.
right? Redubbing Al Michaels' game commentary with the actual sound from them filming the movie. Again, being a nerd, I watched the making of and how they filmed the skating, and they had boom mics down on the ice level as they were skating and stuff. It's pretty cool the way Disney wanted to make sure it was a good stand-up hockey movie that told the story, not just a storytelling device. They had to make sure the hockey sequences in the movie were good.
Awesome. Good list. I might have to check. What was the other hockey movie you said? Because I'm not with Russell Crowe.
Mystery Alaska.
Okay, I may have to check that one out.
Mike Myers has a cameo in it. Hank Azaria is in it. There's a bunch of well-known actors, and Russell Crowe is the lead. It's just a goofy little movie about a small town in Alaska, and the New York Rangers go up there to play him in hockey. It's a fun movie. Not Kurt Russell. Burt Russell is in it too. He's a character.
Oh,
it's a fun movie.
I'll check that out. Wait, Burt Reynolds or?
Yeah, Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds. Yeah.
You want to know something? I didn't know he passed away. I missed that, and he's one of the best actors ever. You know. Do you have a top 5 TV shows?
TV shows, yeah. So, going way back, growing up as a kid, watching MASH with my dad. All 11 seasons of that. I think Alan Alda as the lead character in that show was great. And people talk about, they talk about ratings and the number of people watching, but I don't know that you'll ever find a show where the country literally shut down so everybody could stay home and watch the finale from MASH. I've seen the finale, Forever, Goodbye, NMN. Times, I still cry. It's just if you've never seen the show, the whole show is great. Well-written comedy. And the finale is a masterpiece in comedy television.
I've seen it gets serious too, right? Because at one point,
yeah.
He thinks it was like the chickens, and it wasn't.
Yes, the finale. It's heavy.
Yeah, which is for a comedy show to go there.
Yep.
It's
I'm rewatching Breaking Bad right now, and my wife and I watched the last season. It was my wife and I try to have a couple shows that we always watch together.
Mm-hmm.
We ran out of steam. We got distracted, kids, life, theater, all that.
Sure.
So we're gonna watch the last season again. But I think Breaking Bad is one of the best shows ever on television. Just such a well-written, well-acted story. So Breaking Bad. I'm watching Schitt's Creek for the first time right now, which is so funny. So funny. A lot of heartfelt moments in it. If people aren't watching that show, it's really, really good. It's 3, right?
Yeah.
Even though the ending left something to be desired, if I'm like doing stuff around the house and I want noise, I'll watch How I Met Your Mother. Even though I know all the jokes.
I'm glad we agree that the ending was frustrating.
Let's go back to that. So that's 4. And then I tried 3 times to watch The Office. And finally, everybody that I knew that watched it was like, get through the first season. Just get through the first season and it'll be right. And now, when I'm done How I Met Your Mother, I'll go back and watch The Office again as my other background noise show. And my wife loves Friends, and I like Friends. So that would be like my 5A is Friends. But How I Met Your Mother, I don't have an issue with the story that they chose to tell. I have an issue that they spent 22 episodes on the fucking wedding. I don't know if I can say it. Sorry. 22 episodes on the wedding and 2 episodes on his story with the mother. It just felt rushed. It felt like they should have taken, 10 episodes to tell that story. And I wouldn't have had a problem with how they did it. And my wife brought this up. She's spot on. Every single episode, Bob Saget narrates Ted's inner monologue. Everything that we hear that's not actually Josh Radnor.
I know where you're going with this.
Bob Saget talking. And then they get to the final scene. It should have been Bob Saget sitting there talking to his kids, not Josh Radnor, and people talk about what a shitty person Barney was and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Everything in that show was from Ted's perspective and Ted's memory, telling that story. So I think Barney was exaggerated. Everything was exaggerated because it was a story. But it made no sense for it to be Josh Radnor sitting there. I say Josh Radnor, the actor that plays Ted, sitting there. It should have been Bob Saget.
He's the narrator.
Telling the story.
Yeah.
My wife's the smarter one of the two of us in the house. She's 100% right on that. It made no sense for it to be the actor playing Ted sitting there. It should have been Bob Saget.
I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree with that. I will say, when that show ended, and the show was more about, Robin and Ted, I just kind of went, damn it, why?
And again, I wouldn't have cared if he had ended up with Robin. Spoiler alert, everybody.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have cared if the mother got sick, if Barney and Robin hadn't gotten a divorce. But they spent so long on Barney and Robin's story and the wedding, and they got divorced like that.
Like that,
and Ted ended up with, and I like Christina Milioti. I think she's a really good actress. I would have liked to have seen her in more. I didn't have an issue with her getting sick. I just had an issue with how rushed the finale felt. They spent all that time, and then it was almost like, right, here's your finale.
Yeah, it's tough to end a show. I mean, a lot of shows. Sopranos is my all-time favorite show, and that ending is still.
Watch that. I've heard it's so good.
It's probably, in my opinion, this is my opinion. I think it's the best show of all time. I don't think anything is even close to as good as what that was. But
I'll have to check it out.
They got to the ending, and people to this day are still upset about it. So
I think that's the mark of a good show, is knowing when it's time to go out on top, like MASH did. MASH went out; it was still the #1 show on television. When Seinfeld called it quits, they were still high. Friends was still, high in the charts. I think it's just knowing when it's time to call it quits. But like The Office, I thought The Office did a good job after. I can't think of his name. Not Michael Scott, the actor's name, Steve Carell. After Steve Carell left, it wasn't the same, but I thought they did a good job of carrying on and being a little self-aware when Andy Bernard said, "I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days while you're still in them." Such a great quote from the end of that show.
I felt that right in my throat when he said that, because of how much I really loved that show, and for him to say that. But the show truly did end. I mean, it went on, but when Steve Carell left, it wasn't the same.
And that scene in the airport when he takes out his earpiece and then Jenna Fisher goes over and gives him a hug. The two actors were actually saying goodbye. There was no script. There was no dialogue there. She took her earpiece off and went over and hugged him goodbye. And they had a moment, just the two of them there. And said goodbye, which I like that behind the scenes stuff.
It was totally unreal. And I'll tell you what, when Jim says you're the best boss, I was like, it's just one of those shows you just love so much, I
gotta hang on 1 second. We're moving one of the children to bed. I don't want to wake him up on the way by.
Because this is my favorite segment of the show is coming up is blank versus blank. Okay. And I'm going to give you 2 words, 2 people, 2 things. You got to pick one or the other, and basically one goes away.
Okay. You're like never heard from again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
All right. First one. Now, I think this is an interesting one. I asked this one a lot because I think they're very comparable. It's how much I love these 2 people's music. But Prince or Michael Jackson?
Holy shit. Jesus. I guess Prince, only because as good as he was, I think Michael Jackson had more influence and more of a lasting impact on the music industry than Prince did. And I love Prince. I've got 5 of his songs in my iPad that I like to do, but I can't sing Michael Jackson because it's too friggin' high. But I think Michael Jackson had a bigger impact on the music industry. That's a terrible question to ask. There's no good choice.
So taking Prince, I mean, so when Prince died, Stevie Wonder said, if Michael Jackson was the king of pop, Prince was the emperor. And that's a but I think Michael had more hits that I can think of, but Prince's hits were just so good. So was Michael's.
Again, speaking as the piano bar, nobody goes crazy when I sing Thriller or Billie Jean like they do when I go Never meant to cause you any sorrow. Starts
Oh,
singing
really?
Purple Rain, and people lose their minds.
Yeah. Oh God, what a good movie! And
Mm,
that part Prince was both of them are I've asked that question on the show, and obviously Michael has his issues that could definitely affect his legacy and how people look at him. But
yeah, I will
um,
say I remember I don't remember which podcast I was listening to. It was a true crime podcast, and they went into great detail about those allegations against him and
yeah,
how they're pretty much largely unfounded. There's not a lot of truth to them, which
yeah.
makes me feel better. It makes me feel better about that answer. Now, I do have at least one Facebook friend, Kath Palmer. If she ever listens to this and she hears me not support Prince, she might come to my house and kill me. So just want to put that disclaimer out there.
All right, well, we'll go with Prince then.
Okay.
More okay. So this one's a little bit different. More responsible for the Patriots' success, Bill Belichick or Tom Brady?
See, this is a tough question to answer because you can't have one without the other. Football isn't played in a vacuum. But I think if you had to pick one over the other, I think that Tom Brady gave Bill Belichick the leeway to do all of the things that he did because he didn't have to worry about, I don't know, taking a sack on third down with no timeouts at the end of the second quarter, for example, most recent game. I think that, Belichick's schemes definitely helped when Brady was having a bad game. I think that Belichick's attention to detail helped Brady become a better quarterback, but I think that Belichick was able to be the defensive guru that he is because he didn't have to worry about the quarterback on the field for so long. So
So
Brady's my answer.
okay, all right, all right. See, I've got a lot of Belichick as the answer because he's the GM essentially, so he's putting that team around.
I think he's a terrible GM. I think he's a great
Yeah.
coach, a mediocre GM at best.
All right, all right. I
Ask
know a
me
lot of
again at the end of this year. We'll see how the Buccaneers do.
it's a crazy question to ask because it was a breakup that I never thought was actually going to happen, and
Yeah,
then when
same here.
when it happened, I went, oh, okay, all right, that's didn't see that coming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you only had to have one or the other, movies or TV, what would you go with?
Can I watch movies on my TV at home, or is it only going to
Yes, but I'm
movies?
talking TV shows, either TV shows, we're talking news, everything, or you just have movies.
I'm going to say TV. I think TV. We're going the golden age of TV. There's a lot of really good TV shows out there, and with when I think that's why TV on demand does so well now. I don't have time to sit down and watch a 3 hour movie or a 2.5 hour movie. I'd
True.
rather watch even a 45-minute show is easier to digest than a movie. I think I'd say TV.
Nirvana. Now these are two kind of different bands, but Nirvana or Metallica.
Neither one of them. I know more Metallica music, but I think Nirvana again changed the music industry with what they were doing when they did it. And also, no Nirvana means no Dave Grohl, which has just a bigger impact on the music industry in general. So I'd
I
say I'd
mean,
pick Nirvana.
all right. I mean, Dave Grohl did go on to. I mean, to say like the Foo Fighters, it was about a year later after Kurt Cobain died in '95. They
Hmm.
put out an album. He never really looked back. Random question though, just because it's musicians that died really young. Do you have any kind of take on Sublime? Uh, what do you believe that Bradley Nowell was a genius to the level of Cobain if he could have just done? He mixed so many different types of music, reggae, punk, ska.
Yep.
Should he
I
be?
don't.
He died before they really got to blow up, but
I Yes, I think they would be huge, but I don't know that they were ever going to be on the same level with Cobain and Nirvana. Um, uh, I don't know. Again, I only know a couple of their songs, but I don't know that he was a genius. That's a pretty hefty term, genius. They were good, and he
sure.
definitely died too young. And they had, they might be one of those bands that's still out making music and touring now. Who knows? But I don't know that there's not a lot of bands you can put on a level with Nirvana. And
Okay.
it's harder to have that debate too because you don't know. Like again, bring it around to theater. People talk about John Larson, the guy who wrote Rent. as a genius. And what would he have done if he hadn't gotten AIDS and died after he finished writing the show Rent? It's hard to judge somebody's legacy when it was unfinished. They might have been terrible, 5 years after. They might have sold out. They might have changed the way they did. It's so hard to say. But I mean, I like Sublime. I've got a couple. I do Santeria at the piano bar if there's a young enough crowd there. But
Yeah.
it's hard to put him. I don't know that he revolutionized music the way Nirvana did, the way he changed the way people listen to and appreciate that style of music. It's a hard question, though.
That's a fair point. I because one time I put it on Facebook just to get people going. But I said Bradley Nowell was a bigger genius than Kurt Cobain, and people were like, "Are you serious?" Yeah. But I'm also biased because Sublime's my favorite band. So
I mean, they're definitely good. They were good and innovative, and it's just hard to guess at somebody's legacy.
Red Sox or Patriots?
We'd have to get rid of one.
Yeah.
I mean, after this year, we're getting rid of the Red Sox because they were an embarrassment. But I think overall, I think the Red Sox have meant more to more people for a much longer period of time than the Patriots. I don't know that you could find, if you asked 10 people who Steve Grogan was, they wouldn't know the answer to that question. And if you asked those same 10 people who Mo Vaughn was, or Nomar Garcia Parra was, or
even Ted
Louis
Williams,
Tiant, or any of those, go way back to Ted Williams, they know who those players are. So as much as I love the Patriots, I'd say the Red Sox have meant more to more people for way longer.
I agree, and I feel like Red Sox are like, I love them all, but the Red Sox is more in my DNA than any other team in New England, to be honest, for me personally.
To be a straight up homer, score some brownie points. I've been to a dozen Red Sox games with my wife, a good number. We've never been to a Patriots game, so I definitely have to go with the Red Sox because we share that. I mean, she likes the Patriots, but she used to have a mini season ticket package. She used to go to a lot of Red Sox games, so we'll go with the Red Sox for sure.
All right. I don't think many people have. I've asked this question, and a lot of people, do. I still believe that Boston is a baseball town. That's just me. Here's a kind of a random one. Third Eye Blind or Hootie and the Blowfish?
Hootie. But again, that's just me as a musician. I like Darius Rucker's voice. It fits well with what I like to sing. And again, I come at my music from what works for me. I've got one Third Eye Blind song that I do at the piano bar. I've got 5 Hootie songs that people know and sing along with. So
I did put a request in on one of your Facebook Lives for a Third Eye Blind song.
Yep.
I do love both. Both bands are great.
They're both good, but I like, me personally, I like Hootie.
Jared Stidham or Brian Hoyer?
I've seen enough out of Hoyer.
See a little bit, yeah.
But also, it's not just here. I've seen him when he played for other teams. Yeah. I don't know that Stidham is going to be any better, but it's in a no-win situation because they can't practice in person. And how well does he know the playbook compared to Hoyer? But I've seen enough out of Hoyer. After that game where he cost them 20 points, let's at least give Stidham a shot and see what the kid can do.
And hopefully Cam can play on Sunday. I'm not sure yet. They've rescheduled that game.
Well, he'll be in the protocol long enough that if he's had 3 negative tests and it's been 14 days, he should be able to play.
Because we need him. I think we beat I think it's hard to say. I would say we beat the Chiefs if we had Cam, or at least that game was a little bit better.
It's not a 2-score game if Cam is in there. I think at the very least.
I agree. All right, last question in blank versus
Speaking
blank.
of the Chiefs, did you see the Raiders were the first team to ever beat Mahomes by more than 7 points?
Really?
Yeah, I saw that stat today on Facebook. They beat him by 40-32. He's been in every game he's ever played until that. I mean, even that was a 1-score game. But yeah, the Raiders were the first team to beat Mahomes by more than 7 points.
I gotta say, he's the future of the league. I was really happy to see the Raiders win yesterday because I don't hate the Chiefs or anything like that, but you like to see the number 1 team get knocked off.
Oh yeah, if it's not the Patriots, I'm always rooting for the underdog.
Yeah, and you think about the teams that pass on Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bears were one of them.
Yep.
You gotta be kicking yourself at this point because that kid he's
Mm-hmm.
something special.
Well,
He's something
especially
special.
when you have Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles as your quarterback when you could have had Mahomes.
Yeah, it's and now he'll probably be with he'll probably I don't know. We'll see. I mean, a lot of people are like comparing him. Like, will he go as long as Brady? I go, I don't think so. I think Brady's one of those once in a lifetime type of
Mm-hmm.
guys. That just
Mm-hmm.
my fear with Tom Brady is he's going to go out the Favre way because he's already older than Favre was when he
Yep.
left the league, and it ended face down for Brett Favre. Hopefully,
That was
Tom.
it was ugly. That was ugly.
Yeah. Last question. This is usually the toughest one in blank versus blank. Performing music or theater?
This is tough because I met my wife doing theater, and so many of the friendships that I have today and everything are from doing theater. But I feel like me personally, I'm happy. Performing music. I am the best version of myself when I'm at a piano and singing and entertaining a crowd. As much as I would hate to not do theater again, if I had to pick one or the other, I would pick performing music on my own or with a band as opposed to doing theater.
All right, all right. I know those are your two passions, so I had, we always have to make
Yeah,
that the trickiest question.
you can't have
But
one without the other.
yeah. But Keith, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This has been a lot of fun. Maybe at some point we can have you in the studio if if you're, I know the times are tough and stuff like that.
Yep.
But anyways, everybody wear your masks, and keep your heads up. And until next time, let freedom ring.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Keith.